Hey guys, Kid Aikino here, back with part 3 of the Binge. I'm going to try and record this as quickly as I can. It's after 11 p.m. Also got this new mic here so I don't have to worry about how I'm holding my phone when I'm recording this, although, as promised, I am going to be using a real camera for this stuff pretty soon, so hopefully only a problem I'm going to have to think about for so long. So last time we left off with Conga, which was a British and American co-production released by American International Pictures. They also had a hand in the first film for this episode, Reptilekeus. This one has kind of an interesting production history. Rather than simply dubbing the original Danish language version into English, AIP had much of the film reshot with mostly the same cast, delivering their lines in English, though they were later dubbed over by American voice actors anyway. This results in the Danish and English versions consisting mostly of different takes, sort of like the Todd AO and 35mm CinemaScope versions of Oklahoma. Reptilekeus is amusing mostly for being endearingly simple and generally unconvincing. There isn't really a single unpredictable thing about the script, and Reptilekeus itself is not only obviously a puppet, but clearly a challenge for the puppeteers as well. It just kind of writhes around a lot and spits poorly composited acid, and this is the stuff that made it into the US version. Apparently the director deliberately omitted scenes of Reptilekeus flying because he felt they weren't convincing enough. Honestly though, the film has its charm. It's just so guileless that it's hard to really dislike it, even if I can't honestly make the case that it's good. It's kind of everything you would expect and could want from a film of its type. Incredibly straightforward plotting, a shoot-the-rodeo excursion to Copenhagen that has nothing to do with anything, and dialogue like this.
Why don't you go home? Take it easy for a while.
I'll stay with you.
You're a stubborn guy.
Other people are stubborn. I'm firm.
Even the rural yokel, played by one of Denmark's biggest comic actors, is honestly more watchable than similar comic relief in other films. Next up, there's Gorgo. This one's been a favorite of mine since I was a kid. I loved it when I was 7, and I love it now. It's usually considered a British film, though if you want to get technical, it was made in the UK by the American production company of the King brothers, who had distributed Rodan in the US in 1957. It has the benefit of being directed by someone with a background in this sort of film, with Eugene Laurie having previously directed The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms and The Giant Behemoth, two American monster films with stop-motion effects by, respectively, Ray Harryhausen and Willis O'Brien. It has a whiff of anti-colonialism about it. You have a couple of English treasure hunters capturing a giant creature from a small island near Ireland, going back on an agreement with the University of Dublin and instead taking it to London for exhibition in a circus. It turns out to be an infant, and its mother comes looking for it, destroying much of London before going back out to sea with its child. I don't think it's deliberate, of course. This isn't an overtly forward-thinking film. Remember what I said about the Japanese lines in Godzilla King of the Monsters? Well, Gorgo uses the same Gaelic line pretty much any time one of the Irish villagers says anything. Still though, this is a film in which the English plunder the Irish coast and get their biggest city utterly wrecked for it. This is a low-budget film, albeit pretty expensive by King Brothers standards, but it's extremely ambitious. It leans a little too much on blue screen effects that aren't quite up to snuff, and uses military stock footage pretty much wherever possible, but Jesus, there's still some impressive production value in this thing. The life-size baby monster, first of all, yeah, they made one, is basically a wireframe under a tarp with a head, hands, and tail sticking out, but it doesn't look conspicuously fake at all. All of the locations are credible. There's never the sense of, oh, this is a rented office somewhere that they dressed up to look like a war room. The monster suit looks good, and the jaw, eyes, ears, and so on are all operated by hydraulics from the inside, meaning no wire work and no coordinating between the stuntman in the suit and operators above or beside the stage. And the miniatures not only look great and crumble really well, but there are a lot of them. The final rampage is really spectacular. You get your money's worth. worth with this one, and all in a brisk runtime of just under 80 minutes. I also have to mention the film's excellent score by Angelo Lavagnino, who also composed for 2 Orson Welles films and about 1 million Italian genre films I've never heard of. And there's something else I'm not sure I've seen anyone point out before. Sean the Irish Orphan is, as far as I can tell, the first instance of the Kenny archetype, and arguably one of the best.
I came to let him go back to the sea where he belongs.
Why?
Maybe to save your silly skins for you.
It broke new ground!
God, I love this movie. Next up, there's Mothra. I've talked about this one a couple times before, so I'll keep my comments here short, but I really love this one too. The effects are great, and they're really helped immensely by the use of a big Chinese dragon-style puppet/costume for the Mothra larva. That thing looks genuinely huge. Yuji Koseki's score is also great, and the Peanuts musical performances, other than the Mothra song that would be reused in later films, are criminally underrated. It's also really refreshing to see Toho's kaiju films finally hit that light tone that would inform some of the best of their 60s output. I wish Frankie Sakai did more tokusatsu films. I really need to get around to watching The Last War one of these days. As much as I'd like to see that one, it didn't qualify for the binge, but Gorath did on account of the brief appearance of Magma. Honestly, Magma has nothing much to do with the rest of the film, and if I'm not mistaken, the US version cuts it out entirely, but I'm glad it's in there because it gave me a reason to revisit a film that I hadn't really watched closely enough on my only previous viewing. It's an interesting and thoughtful exploration of humankind's response to the threat of Earth's destruction by an approaching rogue planet. Some diligently look for a solution, some despair, and many simply go on with their lives, realizing that whether Earth survives or not, they're powerless to do anything about it. It's also another of Ishiro Honda and Company's optimistic visions of international cooperation. As the danger Gorath poses to Earth becomes apparent, the scientists among the cast's main ensemble make an impassioned appeal to the United Nations for the world's superpowers to unite behind a plan to move Earth out of harm's way, with a massive complex of rocket thrusters built at the South Pole. Yes, it's fanciful, but the point is, they agree, and the world's resources are quickly devoted to the project, in the end saving the world. Mind you, this film is from 1962, and it dares to hope for such a reversal in global politics by 1980. Given the impending possibility of a massive ecological crisis currently hanging over the world, the human drama of this film is just that much more poignant, and given the real-life response to that situation, Gorath's vision of the future is that much more bittersweet. And wrapping up this episode with a bang, we come to King Kong vs. Godzilla. I actually hadn't watched the Japanese version straight through in at least a couple years, and I actually never had with a proper translation. This time I watched it from a nice MKV copy of the 4K restoration put together by Space Hunter M. Seriously, go subscribe to them if you don't already, with subtitles translated from an official German release of the Japanese version. And I must say, after about 10 years of watching this in either the 1991 or 2014 masters with bullshit subtitles, it's a whole new experience. The restoration isn't perfect, mostly in terms of the color grading. The contrast is a bit weak, and the color kind of muted with a general brownish cast, which makes sense since Hayato Komori, the colorist behind the High Visions, probably graded this transfer as well, but it's still a hell of an improvement. On top of that, the film is a hell of a lot funnier now that I can watch it with the actual dialogue translated, instead of what some guy making fan-subbed videotapes in the 90s made up. Watching the film this way, it's a lot easier to appreciate what made it such a massive hit in Japan. It's a light and breezy film that cleverly satirizes the ballyhoo surrounding the meeting of the monster that started Toho's hit parade of giant monster films with a legendary and influential cinematic icon known the world over, while simultaneously delivering on the spectacle with both monsters' first appearance in color on a wide screen. The cast is great too. Ichiro Arishima is another actor I wish did more kaiju films. As it stands, the only other thing I've seen him in is a spy comedy called 100 Shot, 100 Killed with Akira Takarada. But yeah, King Kong vs. Godzilla is incredibly solid all-around entertainment, and it's easy to see why it was successful enough to launch the Godzilla series proper. And next time we'll look at how Toho followed it up, with Mothra vs. Godzilla, and one of my favorites, Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, plus Matango, Atragon, and Dogora. Until then, thanks for watching, special thanks to Exploder Button, check out my Patreon, and I'll see you next time.